my channel. This week I'm sharing some home-cooked meals as well as some takeout. I relied on my crock pot a couple days and included a couple of sweet treats, and sometimes breakfast is dinner. I'm just going to get started on Sunday like usual, and on this Sunday some of the kids and grandkids wanted to stop by and visit, and since I wasn't up to cooking a family style dinner, we just ordered some pizza, and then later on that evening we had a dessert since I already had my strawberries washed and ready to go in a mason jar in my fridge. All I had to do was get out my hand blender and give them a little bit of a blend so that they were nice and saucy. I did leave some nice sized chunks in there, and then I just served that up over some frozen Sara Lee pound cake that I sat out and let thaw. And I did not add any sugar to these strawberries, but definitely you could if you wanted, but it's just something that I personally am trying to cut back on, and so thought I was doing the right thing by not adding sugar to my strawberries, although there's sugar in the cake and also in the whipped cream, but you know, I saved a little bit here or there. And this was our delicious strawberry shortcake on this night. Now moving on to Monday, Bill has been saying that he would like some shepherd's pie. It's one of his favorite meals, and since our temps dropped down into the 60s, I decided that Monday I would make his shepherd's pie. I got started by pulling out the jars of carrots and celery that I have in my fridge. If you saw my meal prep video, you saw me prepare these veggies and put them in water in these mason jars, which are being stored in my refrigerator for days like this. So I also have some chopped up onions that I prepped as well, and I'm just going to sprinkle some garlic powder on them and get them sauteing in a skillet so that they are nice and tender. Having these veggies already cut up and ready to go did save me some time and really helped me feel more motivated to cook this meal. And so here I have my ground beef added to the same pan with the veggies, and the grease is drained off of it. I then added a packet of brown gravy mix and then a can of cream of celery. I thought I had cream of mushroom, but I did not, so we're using cream of celery. And then I added a half of a soup can of water into this mixture, and just to incorporate it into that gravy mixture as well as thin down that cream of celery soup. And then once I have that all mixed together, it is ready to go into the casserole dish, which I did need some help from Bill to get transferred into this dish. And just a little update on my foot. It is healing great, but I still need a little bit of help while I'm transferring or trying to hold heavy pans. But anyway, Bill did request that we put sliced cheese in the shepherd's pie, which is not typically how it's made, but this is his dinner. And again, I had to have some help getting the mashed potatoes on top, and so I had him help me hold that pan. And then we didn't put it on top of the mashed potatoes just because the way it would melt would be different than if we had used shredded cheese. So anyway, here is how dinner turned out, and since shepherd's pie is not really my thing, I just had mine on this little toddler plate, but it was okay for dinner. Tuesday was what I call a take it easy day, and that is like basically the day after I do a lot of things around the house and I'm really tired or sore. So I'm using my crock pot here. I just sprayed it with some non-stick cooking spray, and then I added some frozen tortellini, and then I just added some peppers, onions, and peppers and onions that I prepped in my fridge. And then I just also added some Italian seasoning, and then some chicken broth. And this recipe calls for a brick of cream cheese, but I'm not really a big fan of cream cheese, so I'm just going to use a half of a brick of cream cheese in this, and it was just fine. I could tolerate it like that. I don't know. I'm just not really big on recipes that have cream cheese in it, but this one was actually pretty good. So after I get some of that chicken broth added in, I'm going to put the remainder of the ingredients in. I'm using 2 of these smoked sausage ropes, and I did not cut it on my crock pot lid. That's just how I transferred it. So here I'm just adding that in, and then you know, getting that cream cheese in there now. I'm also going to use some mozzarella cheese for this recipe. I will link in the description box the actual recipe that I used as inspiration, and I think I followed it almost exactly, which I hardly ever do with any recipe, but my ingredients may be a little less or a little more. So anyway, that's why I will share that recipe with you so you can get the correct measurements, because I tend to like read a recipe and then just kind of guess at the amount to put in, or what looks good to me. And so this is basically all I had to do for this, was just put the lid on and let it go. And so when it was just about time to eat, I just kind of went back in and gave it a stir, just to get all of those cheeses mixed in. And it's really stringy now, but they do melt down really good and become a nice creamy broth, and not like a whole bunch of stringy globs. But anyway, here is a look at how it looks at this point. And then I do get dinner served to me in my recliner, because like I said, this was a take it easy day. I just added some Texas toast garlic bread and some Parmesan cheese sprinkled on top, and somewhere underneath that bread is the sausage. And my husband gave me a fork to eat with at first, which was kind of funny because this was really soupy. And anyway, eventually I do get a spoon, and everything was good. This dinner was pretty delicious. And I was asked to put it on the make again list. On Wednesday, everybody wanted breakfast for dinner. It's been a while since we had breakfast for dinner, or even breakfast for breakfast. So I just got busy frying up some bacon. And I always like to reserve my bacon grease for other cooking, but on this day I really wanted to use some olive oil in my fried potatoes. And here I'm using some sliced up potatoes that I prepped previously over the weekend and have had in my refrigerator for I don't know how many days, like maybe 5 days. And here I'm just getting everything in my pan, some of those peppers and onions, some salt, some pepper, and some garlic powder. These potatoes were still nice and crispy even after sitting in the refrigerator since Saturday. I will definitely make sure that this is a part of my regular prepping routine, because it saved me so much time having to peel potatoes. And so I got some sausage going. The husband brought home some donuts for breakfast dessert. Is that even a thing? Apparently it is. And here is my plate with a couple of eggs on the side. This really hit the spot. It seems like whenever I'm making a chicken dish, it's because I took it out of the freezer and now I have to use it. So here I am getting my chicken breast in the crock pot, and I'm going to make sweet and sour chicken. So I am just going to season up these chicken breasts, and I'm making a lot of them because, like I said, they needed to be used. And also, I figured having a lot of leftovers wouldn't be a bad thing, especially since I'm home every day and we need stuff for lunch around here. So leftovers are a good thing. So I am also going to put on some pepper. Not sure if I told you, I'm just using some garlic and some salt, just trying to season every layer. And then for the sauce, I'm adding some apple cider vinegar and some soy sauce. I'm using apple cider vinegar because that's just what I have on hand. And so I'm just going to add a couple tablespoons of soy sauce. I did use a half of a cup of the apple cider vinegar. Then I'm coming back in with some hot honey. This is just what I have on hand. My regular honey is not looking really good. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe the lid got left open or something. I don't know. So using the hot honey because it calls for crushed red pepper flakes anyway, so it's going to have a little bit of spice. And then next I'm just adding some ground ginger because that's what I have on hand. I don't really care for ginger, so I don't really buy it. Anyway, next I'm going to use this little doodad thing here and just use the pineapple juice in the sauce. The family just really isn't a big fan of pineapple chunks in their food, so I'm not going to use the chunks. I'm just going to put those in the fridge for another use later on and just use the juice out of the can of pineapple so that we get that flavor but not the chunkiness. I'm going to stir that all together. Now I'm going to grab my little spice box thing here and I'm going to add the rest of the spices to the sauce. I'm just going to use the little spoon that they provide and add some pepper, some garlic powder. I do have fresh garlic, but I just was not feeling like getting it chopped up. And then next I just added some crushed red pepper. It's a little less than what the recipe calls for because like I mentioned before, I'm using hot honey in place of regular honey and I just didn't want it to be too spicy. And then I'm adding 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Then I'll just get that sauce all mixed up before pouring it over top of the chicken in the crock pot. Before adding the sauce to the chicken, I just grabbed my jar of chopped up onions and added some of those to the chicken. And then I also grabbed my jar of green and red peppers and added those as well. I am really loving having all of my peppers and onions and other veggies already prepared and ready to go when I'm cooking. Next, I just poured that sauce over top of everything. And if your family likes the pineapples, then this is where you would add those chunks as well. Next, I'm just taking the trivet from my Instant Pot and I'm putting it right on top and nestled the legs in between those chicken breasts. And then I added a cup of rice and 2 cups of water. I'm using a little cake pan to make my rice in. I then added some butter and I'm just going to season up my rice with some salt and some pepper and some garlic powder just because my family also is not a big fan of rice and I want it to have as much flavor as possible so that they'll actually eat it and enjoy it. And I'm going to check on that rice in about an hour and a half. Okay, it's time to check on this rice. It's been in here a couple of hours and as you can see it is done. And I'm going to take it. Actually, I'm going to leave it in here and just turn my crock pot off because it looks like the chicken and everything else is done. But we still have a few hours before dinner time. So I'm just going to turn it off, keep it warm, and, oops, there's some steam. Then I'll add a cornstarch slurry to this stuff over here and get that thickened up. I'm just going to shred this chicken a little bit and leave some of it chunky. I could have cut it up ahead of time into like chunks before I put it in here, but I was just feeling kind of lazy today. It is what it is. I didn't want to make dinner today, but it happened. Dinner happens every day, right? So anyway, I will let you know what it looks like later. You'll get to see the finished plates. I'm sure it's going to be good because it looks good already. So here is how the crock pot sweet and sour chicken turned out. The kids really enjoyed this one and it was super easy to make, so it will definitely be one that we will repeat in the future. On Friday, we had a lot of things going on and I wasn't sure if we would be home for dinner or if we would eat out, but I wanted to make something up ahead of time just in case. And I always figure if I make something in the crock pot, it'll keep till the next day. So I am making a pot of chili. First, I browned up some ground beef and then I added that into my crock pot. And I did make sure that I drained the fat off of this ground beef first. Once all of that meat is in the crock pot, then I start adding the other ingredients. And I started with a can of petite diced tomatoes. And then I added 2 cans of light kidney beans that were drained but not rinsed. No reason for that, I was just being lazy. And then I added some chopped up red and green bell peppers as well as some red onion. And once again, these are onions and peppers that I prepped ahead of time, and it just makes cooking so much more convenient. And then I added an envelope of beefy onion soup mix, and then I added some chili seasoning that I made up myself, and I will list the ingredients for that as well. Next, I'm adding 3 heaping spoonfuls of the tomato bouillon powder. Usually we don't really like a lot of tomato sauce in our chili, so we like to flavor it up in other ways and have more of a beefy, brothy consistency. And next I'm just using up the remainder of my fresh cilantro. Then I'm taking the jar that those peppers were in and just adding almost a full quart-sized jar of water to the chili. I also added some garlic powder, some salt, and some pepper as well. Although I did not get that filmed for you, just know that it's in there. Just some kind of standard chili seasonings there. Nothing amazing or special. This is just a real basic pot of chili. And I just closed the lid and set it for 4 hours and then put it on warm. And we ended up having this for dinner on Friday, and it was so good. We had leftovers on Saturday. And that is going to wrap up this week's What's for Dinner. I appreciate you stopping by my channel. If you had fun here today, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.